Hi, welcome to SAP Product Costing tutorial. So in this tutorial, we will go through cost center planning. In the last tutorial, we have done the cost center accounting, basic settings like creation of cost centers, creation of activity type, creation of cost elements. In this tutorial, we will do the cost center planning. So the tasks that we will perform under cost center planning are, we will create the planned cost element, that is planned expenses for the cost center. And then we will plan the activity hours in a cost center. This cost center is a work center or a production division. And then we will find out the activity rate for the cost center. So let's go through each of these tasks one by one, and as we go through them in SAP, we will understand them more in detail. So the first task is to create cost element in the cost center. Now again, planning is, there are two types of cost center planning. One is activity independent cost center planning. The second is activity dependent planning. In activity independent cost center planning, you have a cost center and you plan expenses for that cost center. These could be electricity cost, water cost, power charges, etc. In activity dependent planning, this is generally done for cost centers which are production divisions, which are like production centers, such as a machine or some location where some production is done or some activity is performed. So we do two steps. First, we plan the activity hours for that cost center. So it will be plan activity hours per cost center. And then we plan the activity cost for these cost centers. And then we work out the activity rate for the cost center. So we will go through various transaction code to arrive at the activity rate. Let me log into SAP. So the first task is to do the cost center, activity independent cost center planning. Transaction code KP06. The first thing is to set our controlling area. So transaction code OKKS, and this is already set as IST5, which we created earlier. Now let's do the cost center planning. KP06. Version is 0, where you can do both actual and planned. Period, let's take second, because currently it's second period. We will just do it for two periods, second and third. Fiscal year 2021 cost centers. So we created some cost centers. I did an F4 to find the cost centers. So let's plan it for administration cost center. Select form based. Since it's activity independent planning, so we don't select the activity type here. Yes, the cost elements have to be selected here. So let's do an F4. Find the cost elements here. Okay, we need to create some activity independent cost elements such as electricity charges, water charges. So go to transaction code FS00. So we created a GL account, electricity charges. Now we need to extend this GL account from FI area to controlling area. So it gets created as a primary cost element. Click edit cost element. Electricity charges auto populated. Select the cost element category, which is primary cost element, and save. We create one more GL account. This will be water charges 635200. Save. Click edit cost element. Cost element category is primary, and save. So we created two cost elements. Now we can plan some cost for these cost elements. So go back to KP06. Let's do an F4 now. Search. Okay, so we have these cost element, electricity charges and water charges. Okay, select form based, click the mountain, and let us plan fixed cost for these cost elements in this cost center administration. I will give USD 1000, or because it's for two periods, so let's give it 2000. So it will get equally distributed between these two periods, and both periods will have 1000 each. Save it. Now we can see 2000 has been saved for the two period 2 and 3. If you want to see period wise, so now it is only for one period and it's coming up as 1000. February it's 1000, that is your electricity charges, and March again 1000. Click this, so you can see the water charges again 1000 each. So we completed the planning for the cost center administration. Now let's go to the activity dependent planning. Activity dependent planning. In activity dependent planning, first we will plan the activity hours in the cost center. This time the cost center is going to be production division. So the transaction code to plan activity hours is KP26. Let's go to KP26. KP26 period, again second and third period. Cost center, we will take production division this time. So production division 1, this will be defined as a work center in subsequent configuration of product costing, where some activities are performed to convert raw material into finished goods. Cost center, that is production division 1. What activities will be performed here? Do an F4. We will have all these three activities performed there: setup activity and labor activity and machine activity. Form based, click the mountain. So let's plan it. Now setup activity is the first one, 330100. Let's give it 10 hours. Labor activity, we give it 40 hours. And machine activity, again we give 40 hours. Now this is for two periods. So when you check for one period, it will be half of it. It's equally distributed between the two periods. Save it. Click the mountain again. So you can verify these are the activity hours for this cost center. If I want to see period wise, click this icon, and period wise select one row. So I have to select this row. Let's say setup activity. Period wise, February it's 5 hours, March it is 5 hours. Next, labor hours. Period wise, February 20 hours, March 20 hours. So we have created the planned hours for the cost center production division 1. Next step. Next is plan activity dependent cost per cost center. Okay. So now we have the activity hours, planned activity hours in the cost center, and we are going to plan for the cost, that is expenses for this cost center. These are the expenses, that is raw material, packing material, and purchase goods. So go back to transaction code KP06, period 2-3, production division 1. Activity types, we have the 3 activity types, but cost expenses, that is cost elements, are different this time. So we are planning for raw material, to purchased components. Okay. So here is the cost center, which is production division 1. In the cost center, you have the 3 activities being performed. Let's take the first activity. For the first activity, you have these 3 cost elements, which are basically the expenses, and plan for the cost of these cost element. In this case, 690, which is your raw material. Since it's for 2 periods, let's give it 4,000. But the first activity setup cost. So let's not put any raw material here or packing. But the second activity is second cost element is the packing material, and third is the purchased components. So in this case, let's give a planned fixed cost for the purchased goods, which is cost element 410720. We will give the value 3,000 US dollar. Then for the next activity, which is 330101, this is labor activity. For this, we will give a planned fixed cost for 690, which is raw material, again 3,000 US dollar. And we also gave something for the 410720, which is purchased goods, again 3,000 US dollar. The last activity 330102 is the machine activity. For machine activity, we are giving some planned fixed cost for 410720, which is purchased fixed goods, 3,000. So these are the planned fixed cost for these various cost elements, which are basically expenses for different activities in this cost center. You can save it. If you click the mountain, you can see the planned fixed cost for each of these cost elements per activity type. Click this period screen to see the cost per period. So if I want to see the cost per period for this cost element per this activity, first activity 330100, select it and click the period button. So it's $1,500 for first February period, and then next period March. Okay. So now for the production division, let's enter some cost which is not dependent on the activity hours. So we will remove the activity types here. This is called activity independent cost, which we have done earlier, and we will enter some cost element which is not dependent on the activity hours. We can take these two elements again, electricity charges and water charges. These are activity hours independent cost elements, and enter some value, planned value here. Let's give it $1,000. So for each period is $500 only, and save it. So the next step as part of cost center planning is planned cost splitting. In this case, what the system will do, it will take the cost in the cost center which is not activity dependent and will equally split it among the activities performed in the cost center. So let's go to the cost center report. Control N, S underscore ALR 870136111. So period is 2 to 3, version is 0, and the cost center is 3301005. Execute, and we can see the cost center here, production division 1. And for this production division, we have the planned cost here, that is raw material, purchase, electricity, and these are the activity types. And again, for this activity, we have the planned hours, 10, 40. So maybe we should run it just for one period. Showing for both the periods. We will run it only for one period now. Period 2. So period 2, and these are the planned activity hours. Setup activity is 5 hours, labor activity is 20, and machine activity is 20 hours. Okay. And here on top, we have the cost elements for which we have planned the values. Now, raw material is activity dependent, so the planned cost is activity dependent. Same with the purchase components, which is also activity dependent. However, we have two more expenses here, that is electricity charges and water charges, $500 each for this period. These are not activity independent. So the next step is we are going to run the transaction code KSS4, and that will divide these electricity charges equally among the activities to arrive at the activity rate per hour. So the transaction code is KSS4. So plan cost splitting transaction code is KSS4. Let's go to that. 4. Give the cost center period. We can do it only for second period, let's say, and test run. Okay. So planned cost, it's in euro. It's getting split between these three activities: 100, 101, and 102. So we have planned for these two independent costs, we have planned 1,000 euros, 500 euros for each of these cost elements. Let's go to the cost center report and I can show you there. So you see, the for one period, electricity charges is 500 and water charges is also 500. Now that is 1,000 euro. Divide by 3. You have 3 activity types. Divide by 3. That comes to 333.33 per activity type. So that's what we are getting when we run the plan cost splitting, 33.34. Let's go back, deselect the test run and execute the program. So the activity independent expenses have been equally divided among the activities. Next step is to arrive at the plan price calculation. So we have to find the rate at which the activity has to be absorbed in the product cost, KSPI. Control O, KSPI. So KSPI will take basically your activity dependent value, activity dependent planned cost, and to that it will add the activity independent cost and then arrive at the total cost for that activity. So we have to create a cost center group here. It cannot be done for just one cost center. So we create a cost center group and we do it for one period, which is second. So let's create a cost center group KSH1 and we give it the group name production. PRD1. So this is production division 1 and production division 1. Save, and to this we are going to add the cost center. I have F4 here. This is production division 1. Enter and save. So let's run it for this cost center group PRD-1. Execute it for cost center group PRD-1. Test run. Let's see. So now we have the activity rate per hour. So for the first activity, that is setup, machine setup, the rate is it's 3,666.64 euro for per hour, but it is for 10 units. As you can see, P units, which is 10 units. So for 1 unit, it will be 366.6. Similarly, for the next activity, which is labor setup, the rate is the expense rate. The rate is 166,166.67, which is for 10 units. For 1 unit, it is 166.6. So this is the rate which will be charged to the product once it is manufactured in this production division. So let's say there is a raw material which is getting processed in this product cost center, and you spend setup activity, let's say around 5 hours. So the rate that will be charged for this activity will be 5 into 366.6. Now this is what SAP has calculated. Let us verify that the values are correct. So you can look at my Excel here, the calculations here. So we have the 3 activity types, that is setup activity, labor activity, machine activity. These are the cost elements. The planned activity hours per month is 5/20/20. This we have done it just now, can be verified in this transaction code KP26. We planned these hours in KP26. So for this cost center, these are activities and display it. So you can see for February it is 5. So for the first activity is 5/20/20. So that has been captured here, plan activity hours per month. Next is activity dependent cost. So you see there are 2 activity dependent costs, 410690. This is raw material cost, and 410720. This we planned in the transaction code KP06 just now. So if you go to this transaction code KP06, period 2, cost center, which is production division, 1004 activity types. We have 3 activity types, and these are the cost elements, the raw material and purchase components. So look at the plan. We planned for this cost center. So here for the activity type 330100, that is setup activity, we planned 1500 euros for this cost element 410720. So this has been captured here, cost element 410720, the activity 330100, and for this 1500 has been entered here. Similarly, for the next activity, we have planned 1500 each for both the cost elements. This can be verified here. That is the next activity. You see for 690, 1500 has been planned, and for 720, next activity, for 1500 again has been planned. And for the third activity, only for the last cost element 720, 1500 has been planned. So that has been entered here. For the last activity, 1500 has been planned. As for KSS4, that is, this is activity independent cost. We ran the KSS4 and we got this value 333 per unit. So that I have already run it, and we found the value 333. You can see 333.34 for each of these activity types. So that has been entered here. KSPI is giving the rate at for each of these activity. So this is coming 366 per unit. Now that is what the SAP has shown us, 366. This is for 10 units. So for 1 unit it is 366. The next one is next activity rate is 166.67. SAP has shown us same 166.67 for 1 unit. This for 10 units. Looking at this is the formula, how it has arrived at what we have to do. We have to add up all these costs. So you add up the activity dependent cost and you divide by the planned hours. So you are getting the rate. That is column E3 plus F3 and G3 divided by the activity planned hours, which is column D3. So the planned activity rates have been calculated correctly. And the last transaction code is KSBT. Here you can go and display the planned and actual activity rates. Currently we don't have the actual activity rates, but we have the planned. Let's see the planned rate, KSBT. So if you go to transaction code KSPT, cost center, activity types, vehicle 330102 for period 2 and execute it. So run the report and we can see the activity types, that is setup activity. The rate is coming as 3,666.64 for 10 units. For 1 unit, it will be 366. So this matches with the KA earlier calculation. So this completes our cost center planning tutorial. In the next tutorial, we will now look at FI and MM integration. This is a prerequisite for starting product costing configuration, FI MM integration. Generally, it is handled by the MM consultant, but here we will do it because unless we have the FI MM integration, we cannot do complete product costing configuration. We cannot create BOM, we cannot create routing, etc. in the product costing. Thank you.